When you have to shoot, shoot, don't talk.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the Trap House Podcast. My name's Justin Jett. We have a special guest today, Rosanna Moore from Pennsylvania. She's been on the hit TV show Alone. You might have seen it on the History Channel. She's going to join us, talk about her experience on the show and what she does outside of the show. And pretty cool stuff. I've watched every season. It's kind of nice to get the background story from someone that's actually done it. And yeah, she's representing some trappers on there. She's setting snares and doing all that good stuff. She was on a grizzly bear trap line, found a bear trap. We'll dive into all those details when we start the conversation. But first, we have to give it up to the sponsors. We have a new sponsor alert here. We have Weeby Knives joining us. Their website is weebyknives.com. That's WIEBEKNIVES. That's how you spell it. weebyknives.com. A lot of products there. Great quality knives. We use them here. Not just skinning knives, but fleshing knives as well. And also, I think we're going to start carrying, well, I don't think, I know, we're carrying this big game processing kit now that they have available. So, looking forward to that. I'm going to try that this year when I go out deer hunting, see how that works out. But yeah, check out their website, and we're happy to have them on supporting the show. WeebyKnives.com. Also, J3 Outdoors, makers of the Hags Bracket. Check out their website. It's j3o.com. So many universal American-made products on this site that Jeff has, especially if you're a water trapper, and especially if you're a muskrat trapper. Great spring clips and bait holders, even larger spring clips for beaver, the universal lock, tail hook for skinning, holding the muskrat in place while you skin, just all kinds of good stuff. So check out their website, j3o.com. And also we have Top Lot Stretcher Company with us, toplotstretcherco.com, to check out their website. And I was able to talk to Leon here recently, and they got some new things out. He's got some more knives available. Wanted me to talk about these Pro Pins, which they're pretty fancy. They're steel point, aluminum head, so they're lightweight, very sharp. You don't have to use a hammer to hammer these into your stretching board when you're trying to pin out your coon or whatever hide that you have there. And they come in a nice little plastic holding container. There's different count sizes. So you might want to check that on their website. And yeah, we appreciate them helping us out and supporting the show as well. And last but not least, Hoosier Trapper Supply, home of the Top Dog Predator Bait and jet fuel. Speaking of jet fuel, we've just released a Jetpack Airstrike. So it's a discounted package, and it comes with several things. First, you have the Top Dog, of course. It's a 16-ounce jar Predator bait. That's a mainstay, a must-have on the trap line. But it also comes with 16 ounces of coyote urine, a 1-ounce lure, a predator magnet, and also the jet fuel, of course. But it comes in the larger size. It comes in a 4-ounce jar. So, great little package at a discount price. Pick it up at HoosierTrapperSupply.com, and as well as all your other needs on the trap line and fur shed. So. And what else do I need to say here? Oh, yes, the show is available now. Hoosier Trapper Outdoors is back online. We're going to be out every 2 weeks. It's going to be a regular show. So if you haven't checked that out, hit us up on YouTube, or you can watch it on the homepage of our website as well at Hoosier Trapper Supply. Sign up for the email newsletter and get it that way as well. And as far as Facebook goes, I have the Catch Circle trapping page for anyone, and everyone's welcome there. Spread your knowledge, share your photos, talk to like-minded people and other trappers. It's a great community. I think we're a little over 10,000 people on that page now, so it's a lot of fun to connect with people on there. So, last but not least, join a trapping organization of any kind. And I think that's all I had on the heavy list here of multiple things to do. So, All right, let's go talk to Rose and see what her whole journey was all about. Thanks. All right, we have Roseanne Moore with us on the show. We're going to talk about the History Channel's Alone and her experience on there. Charlie's on here as usual.
Yep, I'm here. Glad to be here.
So, Rose, can you give us a little background of where you're from, how you grew up and how you ended up on this show?
Yeah, sure. Well, first, thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. And I live in Wellsboro, Pennsylvania, and that is my home. That's where I lived most of my life. I moved away for a little bit, but not too far away, and decided about 2 years ago to come back. So I guess growing up, probably grew up just like you guys, which is a little different than in most parts of the country, I think, just running around the hills here in Wellsboro. I really grew up in the heart of the Pine Creek Gorge. So growing up and spending all my time in the woods, it was just what I did. So people ask me that all the time. Why do you do what you do? And who taught you to do it? Nobody taught me to do it. It's just what I do. So when you're asked that question, I think if somebody asked you guys that too, it's just who you are. So, yeah.
More of a lifestyle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what everybody here does. So, or most people here do, or at least understand it when they live here.
So. We actually, we're pretty close to Indianapolis, but as you go further south in Indiana, that's just part of the culture. It's the outdoor lifestyle is much more prevalent there than obviously in the bigger urban areas, but it's not such a big city too that people, a lot of people can certainly relate to that. Some can't, but so.
Well, I assumed, meeting you guys at a trapping show, you probably grew up pretty much the same way. It's just a select few people that still do what you guys do and what I do and what I try to teach. Well, I guess we got to see a lot of that out of the convention. That's a generation.
So to back up for anyone listening, we Rose was at the National Trappers Association, had their national convention in Iowa, Spencer, Iowa, just a few weeks ago, and we were there, and she was helping with a kids. You want to explain that?
Yeah, so a friend of mine, Alan Probst, does North American Trapper. He approached me about a youth outreach program because I teach youth wildlife conservation and trapping. So he had approached me about doing that prior to even going on the show. And then I ended up going on the show. So I didn't get to really do a lot with him. So I told him we'd pick that up when I got back. And so that's what we were out there doing, is passing out traps and DVDs for, education to the kids.
Yeah. That was a huge success, that Kids Cave. All the little stations, and obviously you were one of them.
They had everything.
That was really neat.
Yeah.
Very hands-on, interactive, a lot of moving parts, a lot of volunteers. I think that should go on at every convention.
Yeah, they said that they plan on doing it again. They were really happy with it, and I think that now we're seeing that youth have more backing, more information, more education. Everybody is just really ready to step up and try to teach that to the next generation. So I think that the youth right now have a great opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. When I was growing up, and I've mentioned it before, when trapping particularly was, no one wanted to share their secrets. So it was gradually more and more has become available, and now it's all available. It's all out there. So other than you just got to do your homework, and then you got to get out and do the work, so, but which is great. That's really the way it should be. But
the conventions are nice. I think that it kind of, it isn't as one-on-one. So people that are new trappers, or at least intrigued or interested, they can go to those conventions and not feel like that it's not okay that they don't know yet. They can just kind of explore and get that information. It's a great place to gather that information. So I love the convention. And I get to meet really cool people.
So had you gone to the Pennsylvania Trappers Association convention before?
Yeah, I actually spoke there. I did a little seminar about my 10 items because that was pretty easy. That was pretty early on. I couldn't talk a lot about it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did my 10 items and what I was happy with and what I would change. So.
Okay. Well, while we're on that subject, what were your 10 items?
Well, hold on too. Like there's actually a handful of, there's quite a few people that never even heard of the show. So we should probably explain that. Like, what is the show actually about? Do you want to go into detail on that? Just the basics,
Yeah. So I'll give a brief overview and then I'll talk about why it's important that I'm a trapper and how that is associates to the show. So the show is called Alone on the History Channel. We're in season 8. So I appear on season 8. They take 10 participants and they drop them off wherever they choose. This year was in British Columbia, Chilco Lake. You get to take those 10 items out of I think it's a list of 40 or so, but they're all primitive items. But the catch is you're completely alone. You have no camera crew. You film it all yourself and you have to survive out there for as long as you can.
And the last person standing.
Yes, wins. Well, it did change one year. So every year there's a twist. So normally it's a $500,000 prize. Last year they did a twist of $1 million for 100 days. They did the 100-day challenge. And then this year the twist is danger. It's grizzly bears. So it was back to 500,000, which sounds a little bit more like it should probably be.
Yeah, it sounds like it should be flipped. I think the grizzly bears would be worth $1 million.
Yeah, definitely are, especially after living with them. But I ended up on the show because I do a lot of trapping stuff. So I showcase a lot of my trapping on social media. And the show has about 20,000 applicants. And I didn't apply for the show originally. I actually don't watch a ton of television just because I stay very, very busy. I have nothing against television. By the end of the day, I'm pretty tired. So a producer was following me and kind of reached out to me, and I familiarized myself with the show so that I kind of ended up on the show because I'm a trapper. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to have to sneak me in the back door because I want to be on the show now.
It's so cool. I know. I don't know. I don't think that everybody feels that way, but there are some people that it's cool. It's cool to test yourself. I think that it's only a select few that I hear say that. Everybody else is like, what were you thinking?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your pain and suffering is entertainment for everyone else.
I know. And then to go out there and then come back and then hear, everybody critiquing what you did was pretty tough because they don't tell your whole story. It's very heavily edited, and they know after 8 seasons what people want to see. So they're good at taking it the direction that they want it to go. So
yeah. So what 10 items did you end up taking?
This should be easy, but for some reason, whenever I name them off, I forget stuff. So I took my longbow with arrows. I was allowed to take 9 arrows with me. So I took 6 broadheads and then 3 bunny busters. So they all count as one item. I took fish hooks, and you were allowed to take line with those, but no pole or anything. My ferro rod for my fire. I took a pot. My sleeping bag. My sleeping bag was very important for me. And I talk about this a little bit because I do see the comment a lot from people saying, well, you didn't really need to take that. You can survive without it. Or you didn't need to take that. Well, you can really survive without any of this stuff if you have to. But we were allowed to take something. And when you're very, very cold and you're very, very wet out there in the middle of the day, you don't get to think, oh, I can't wait to go get dry clothes on and get warmed up and, have some soup or something. Your only thing you get to think that you're coming back to is, I really can't wait to crawl in my sleeping bag. So it was like my little bit of comfort, so I'm a big, advocate of the sleeping bag. I just think it's, makes it a little bit more comfortable. So anyways, I took a multi-tool because I planned on tying flies. I took, oh gosh, see, here I go. An axe, a saw, paracord, and snare wire. There we go. That's 10.
Okay.
No tarp? Did you say tarp?
I didn't take a tarp. We could take a tarp, but they do give you one to cover your camera equipment because it's very expensive equipment and there's a lot of it. So we just kind of use that to put over the trees when we're first like crawling under something. So.
Okay. That's just crazy to think about.
So are there items that you wish you hadn't brought and grab and which instead of something else? In other words, was there, something you would have swapped for something else?
Yeah, change outs. Hindsight, I think I wouldn't have taken my axe. I don't think I needed it. It exerted a lot of energy. It was nice to, knock the branches off the lodgepole pines. But I just would cut with my saw. But, the axe just kind of, you get so weak. I would just let it fall and kind of break the limbs off because swinging it was just not happening anymore. So I would trade out my axe possibly for rations. I did not take rations. So having those little bites of food as extra probably would have been nice.
Do most of the other contestants take rations with them, or is that just kind of 50-50 or?
No, I think it's more did than didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would.
So, and then your area was particularly difficult to get food, correct?
Yeah, it was a really tough area. There were a lot of restrictions, and I think there's a high predator population. Like the moose numbers there are very, very low. In some areas right now, moose are actually very low in populations, like down 70% in some areas. So moose were not on the list of animals that we could take. Deer were, but I was in such a heavily trafficked grizzly bear area that I didn't see a deer. The rabbits were low populations. The only way that I found my rabbits, I sat for so many hours, like just looking for a sign of something, some movement, just not moving at all, hours and hours and hours. And finally one day I saw this tiny little movement and I didn't move and I waited for it to come into my vision and it was a rabbit. So I knew because there was a rabbit that I saw that I could snare that rabbit. I just had to start trying to figure out where they were going. And I had tried to do that. But when you're standing in the middle of a forest so vast and that much timber down, it's very, very full. You're just like trying to figure out where a rabbit runs. It's very difficult. So once I saw him, I knew I could get him. And then I just went crazy with the snares.
How many snares did you set?
46 at one time.
Yeah. And you said that was like a show record or something.
It's like a crazy amount. They kind of giggled at me. So I had to go back and help pull them down because they were kind of strewn all over the mountainside. I was just kind of figure out, where they would be and set batches of them because it was a passive form of hunting. I mean, they're not a lot of, there's no fat basically on them, but it's something in your stomach and it's some nutrients, so I thought if I could set those every day, I was very regimented in what I did. So I would get up and tell the camera what I was going to do for the day. And then I would try to hunt every morning. And then I would try to fish and I would try to snare and I would build onto my shelter. And then I would cut firewood and harvest, some berries or whatever. So I just made sure every single day that those same things got done every day. So I guess maybe I was a little bit boring out there because, once you do the same things every day for many hours.
Right.
Probably, but.
So the restrictions that you were in place were put on by the province of British Columbia through their game laws, or I'm assuming that's how that worked?
I think it was a bunch of different sources. So we were on First Nations land. So we had to follow the regulations too. Like the salmon were sacred, so we couldn't touch them They're like the grizzly bears, we weren't allowed to touch them. Also, the salmon didn't run. They were having trouble getting through. There was a landslide in the Fraser, which also contributed to, the grizzly bears being a little extra hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So the salmon, bull trout had to be a certain size, but they were out deeper. And you could get rainbow trout too. But the bull trout, I think, had to be over 20 some inches. I can't remember what that number was, but lots of regulations. You couldn't use live bait. There was a live bait ban, which means you couldn't use any plant material. So that's why I was tying flies. What else was? No squirrels, no rats, no mice.
No mice?
No mice.
That
So
is crazy. I've watched every season, and I feel like this was the toughest as far as trying to gather food because the restrictions.
You're watching food run by you.
I think I would turn the camera off and eat one of those mice if I had to.
Ironically, they basically took me because I'm a trapper, and they saw that I had outdoor skill, and of course you have to compete for that spot. That's not just they see you on social media and they want you, or that you send them a video. You have to go to boot camp and you have to compete for that spot. So I earned my place there, but I piqued their interest because I was a trapper, but then I got there and it was illegal to trap. So even primitive traps were not okay to do. So like here, I love to build homemade trigger systems. I build tripwire systems. I build I'll build large game traps. I have this YouTube video where I built a large game trap. It's like a 4 foot by 6 foot, and it's got like 12 fire hardened spikes on it. And then I build a tripwire with a homemade trigger system, and then I set it off. So I love to do stuff like that, which is like, you can't leave it because that's totally illegal to do really anywhere. But I love to experiment with that stuff and then set it off. And so I have that skill, but I just wasn't allowed to utilize it out there.
But you were allowed to snare, of course. So your
Snare,
trapping background did come in handy.
yes, because I did the tracking animals, trying to figure out where they go and what they're going to do. And yeah, so I was allowed to snare rabbits. Yeah.
For all the guys out there and women that snare, were using just a piece of wire, or did it have a lock on it? Was it just a sliding hoop looped wire, or did you have a lock on it?
Yep, it was we just take a spool of wire and sorry, my dog is barking.
That's all right.
So you just take a roll of snare wire, and then you construct your own. You just make a loop on the end, feed it through. And I would just go by like the size of my fist, just a little bit bigger. And that's about a rabbit. The squirrels would have been much easier to snare because there were so many more squirrels, but we weren't allowed to do that. So
was there a reason behind that on the squirrels?
And it was something about fur taker versus fur bear, something happening there. But I was so focused on everything else and all the regulations that I just was like, I can't even keep track of what they all are. I'm just going to focus on what I can do.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You could do grouse, right?
You could shoot a grouse.
Yeah, because I remember seeing that on the show.
Yep. I did see one grouse. I was over at the lagoon. I was walking to the lagoon, and you're watching for bears because I had so many grizzly bears outside my shelter. So, your head is just constantly on a swivel. You live that way, wondering where they're coming from next. So I'm just looking around and I'm walking, and grouse, they scare you.
Yeah.
Or was a grizzly coming after you?
Yeah, so I walk around the corner, and I always have my gun, So I walk around the corner and I flush a grouse, and I didn't see it. It saw me when I was, coming around the corner, and this thing just took off. And, from that second of being startled to like trying to figure out if you're going to have a chance at this thing, there's just no chance at it, So that was the only grouse I saw, but I did see one.
And you weren't allowed to snare grouse, just strictly shoot them. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Someone needs to talk to their producers.
I did. We were allowed to take ducks. So I did make a bow fishing kind of a setup with one of my arrows. And I did stalk this poor little duck for a very, very long time, but she was way too far out there. And I finally just made the call that I didn't want to lose my arrow. So I didn't shoot at her, but she just wouldn't come in, you know. So I did attempt to hunt a duck.
So you also like the area. You said to me at the convention that it used to be an old trap line that you were kind of stationed at. Is that right?
I know another really ironic thing is that I ended up on an old grizzly bear trap line. So, you know, being a trapper, I mean, what are the chances that in all of those mountains, I would end up on a trap line and find a grizzly bear trap? So, I found remnants of an old trapper's cabin. And you can see that in one of the videos where I was cooking up my rabbit. So I just had a tripod because there were so many things left that I had planned that I wanted to do. There really just is not enough time. So the 37 days that I was there is nothing. And that's what I kept saying. That's what I had the hardest time with was I kept saying, I hate my number because it felt like nothing. You know, no, it was the smallest amount of time. I needed so much more time out there. I had so many plans, but I made that tripod right there and I didn't build a kitchen because I was inside. So you can see behind me, you'll see a small wall of logs. That's the old trapper's cabin that I found. So I was going to try to build off from that to build me a small kitchen right there.
Mm.
I didn't get to finish that, but that was the old trapper's cabin that was just up from where I set up my home. And then I found the bear trap on the way down under a couple of trees. And then there was like a tree that had grown into two other trees. So it was like where they hung the grizzly bear to skin it, I would guess, because it was pretty high up there. And it was a substantial size for a tree, you know, to be across there. So I'm assuming but as I'm out there every day, I'm trying to make up this story in my head. I had so much fun finding stuff. I was like a little kid, like trying to piece together a story of a husband and wife that lived on a trap line. And there were the two old wooden crosses right next to my shelter. So yeah, I don't know. It was an old trap line. It was a really cool little adventure that I was on out there.
The trap scene when they showed it, like you said, they edit so much, and the trap was in such good shape too. I was like, I started to think that that's planted. Like that didn't even look right. Everyone online was like, "This is fake" and all this stuff. But you explained it a little bit more. It was kind of hidden down in some down timber that would kind of, you know, shield it from the elements a little better.
Yeah, there's no way I would have found that, but I was cutting the pine boughs for my finished shelter. Which they never showed my shelter from the outside when it was finished. They only ever showed the doorway where the tarp was hanging down, but I covered the whole thing in like a shingled pine bough system. So I was in this old pine tree, really crawling around in there. And underneath that was a giant old tree that had fallen. And underneath that, where that had started to decay, was the spring of this trap. And so I knew what it was as soon as I saw it. So I started to pull it away a little bit and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a cool find. So I ran to get the camera because it was quite a ways back. So I brought it closer. And that's when I was like, I have to show you what I found. And then I started pulling it up out of there. But
that's amazing.
That is amazing.
And it was a new house.
New house. Yep. A new house number 4.
Man.
So did you get to keep it?
No. They made me take it back and bury it where I found it.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was a family member of, I believe, the chief. They don't give you a lot of information, but they're just like, nope, you can't have it. I'm like, okay.
And it had to go.
I really understand what this means to me. The depth of how cool this was, and just what an amazing find. They just,
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is.
I'd almost cry. Like, no, I'm keeping it.
Really sad, but I took it back and buried it.
So were there people from the representatives from the tribe that came with the people from Alone to check on you guys too, or?
There was one gentleman that would come out and they were showing him around and kind of, teaching him a few things, but mostly it was just the crew when they would come out, but nobody really talks to you.
Okay.
I was super excited about the bear trap and I wanted to tell them all about it. And they were just like, can't talk to you. I said, I feel like I should be on Outcast, not alone.
So they have to give you the silent treatment, no human interaction, sort of.
They sure do.
So for those that don't watch the show, how often do you get checked on?
I think it really depends on your situation. I didn't really realize that they were watching my feet as closely as they were. They did. I was like, well, they started to leave a med check one time and they were like, well, they came back and they're like, we want to make sure we get pictures of your feet. And then I was like, why are you taking pictures of my feet? So they noticed earlier that my feet were losing circulation. And that didn't turn out, and it wasn't terribly cold at that point, but, and then that is what led to the later, after I got home, diagnosis of a syndrome that I have that was possibly triggered by the starvation. So there's nothing I could have done out there to change that, but they were watching that. So for me, well, they came out, I think maybe after about a week and a half. And then you really lose track of time out there, by the way. So it's very difficult. But I think then they came out at maybe 3 weeks was when they took the pictures, maybe. And then I think that might have been the last time they came out, and they said they were trying to reach me or something, but I had forgotten my comm bag, and they couldn't get me. That's when they came back to get me. So it really just depends on what they're watching or how well you're doing or what your weight loss is.
Do you have a way to contact them if something goes wrong?
Yeah, you have your yellow brick to let them know that, where you would tap out, that, you can let them know if something's wrong. You have a sat phone too, but you can't turn anything on because they super glue it. So they make sure that you're not doing anything with the equipment, messing with the equipment. It's solely for emergency purposes.
Gotcha.
That's pretty wild.
So going back, you completely self-film this. So how much, and you said there was a lot of equipment. So how many different cameras do they provide you?
Well, I think with the GoPros and stuff, we had about 5.
And
so we have main camera, smaller camera, and then a lot of real small cameras.
And I'm assuming they train you on all of that in advance.
Yeah.
At the boot camp.
Yeah. Well, so we'd go to orientation too. So we stayed a little bit longer than everybody else because we had 2 weeks of quarantine after we came across the border.
Okay.
And from quarantine to orientation, and we did 2 weeks there, and then we get dropped. So we were there about a month. So yeah, they do camera training and bear safety.
So explain the boot camp. That's probably something that, were you aware of that, Justin?
Yeah, I knew. They talk about it a little bit on there, but
so explain the boot camp.
I don't know how much I can explain of boot camp, but I think I can give you the overall.
Okay.
Because I just don't know how in depth they want me to go on that. So basically, they choose, I think it's 24 out of the 20,000, and then so you can do a lot on film that maybe you didn't do all by yourself. So they're just really trying to make sure that you are proving yourself, in person. That you can really do it. So there's a survival expert who is really amazing and asks you questions. And then you build like a bow drill and start a fire in a certain amount of time and things like that. Go over talking in group to see what your personality is and how well you talk to others. And because that, it comes down to that too, personality. I mean, I think the unique part of the show is that people connect with each personality on there on some level, because what I hear, and it's really tough sometimes, but you hear, I don't like her, or I don't like him, or I like this one, I don't like that one. I think that sometimes they forget we're actual people with feelings, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
you going in there that's going to happen, and they tell you not to read those, but yeah. So
it's a cruel world.
It's a cruel world. Holy cow. And I'm just I like to think I'm a very kind person. So I'm very surprised sometimes at how cruel the internet can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do get to the point where you can laugh it off a little bit more. But I don't know. I always think about my children, and I always think I taught my children to not ever talk to anybody like that. So it just amazes me when people do it, but you know that going in. So, but that's part of it is your personality. You know, they know, again, after 8 seasons, what personalities people connect with more. And they probably, you know, some of the people that are a little more abrasive are interesting people to put on there too, to see how well they do, or people that, you know, maybe have a tough exterior. They maybe want to pick them to see how well they do in a situation like that, how tough they really are. So there's a lot of reasons that they pick you, and they find those out when they send you to boot camp.
So I'm assuming they do like a psychological profile of each contestant.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes,
So
they do.
Outside of food, which I guess would be like the number one thing, essentially with the struggle on the show, what other aspects did you struggle with? I know you enjoyed it. I know you wanted to have more time there, but what other aspects of it did you find that was more of a challenge than maybe you anticipated?
I don't think I knew it was going to be really hard because I spent a lot of time in the mountains. So I didn't know that it was going to be extremely difficult. So I don't think that I thought any of it was harder. It was interesting to me, you know, coming from the mountains here to the mountains there, how much less of the things that I'm used to that I found out there. And someone interviewed me here at home, and I said, like, earthworms, right? Like,
Sure.
where I live, there are tons of them all over the place. You can't dig and not find them. Out there, I couldn't find an earthworm to save my life, literally. So that difference was kind of neat to see. I really valued all of it. So I just found it very interesting, not really any, you know, I didn't sit there and think, well, this is so difficult. I guess I just tried not to have that thought. So, you know, I don't think any of it was any more difficult. Watching my reaction to the grizzly bears, the first one that you see, you know, with mine was a mother and 2 cubs running straight at me. Beach.
Yeah.
Crazy. Then the footage of that was really shaky footage because it was like my 4th day there, and she's running straight at me with these cubs that are almost the same size as her. And she put her nose up in the air, and I knew she winded me, but she was probably trying to go around me. But nonetheless, I needed to get off the beach, but I'm still trying to get footage. So I have my little camera, and I'm just walk inside the tree, and I'm tapping it to try to focus on her, but she's coming fast. So I was like, I gotta go. And then I took off up on the hill because I just needed to get out of her way. So no footage of that one that was real usable. So it would have been really cool if I could have stuck around and got some cool footage for everybody to see, but your life is kind of,
Yeah.
So, but it was funny to see my first reaction. And then I thought, okay, well, you saw how you reacted. Now you need to change it for the next one. And so I would do that whenever they were outside my shelter. You can't run out of your shelter screaming because there's a bear outside. You gotta talk yourself through it. And I would say, I have another bear outside, and you could hear him breathing or, you know, walking or whatever. You could hear it on the camera. So, at the end, when Nikki says you had so many grizzly bear, that's why, because I had so many grizzly bear, but I just didn't have good footage of it because I'm either sitting inside my shelter and I'm not going to peek my head out when I can hear him breathing behind me, you know? So you just sit and you wait, and then he would go away or whatever. And then it would happen again. And so I could remain calm and have control of the situation. But that last one, the way I reacted in that situation, he had been there for about 3 hours. I scared him out of camp in the morning. And then he circled around and came up behind me and was watching me. So, and then he was going back and forth. And then he went out in like my marsh and he was going back and forth. I would just see glimpses of him every once in a while, still out there. So I knew that he had a purpose other than just passing through. So, me talking to myself saying, I don't even know why I'm crying. It was just some reaction that happened. And then I was like, you have got to stop and think this through. Because everybody was like, I mean, it was great because I was like, what point do I push this button? Because that's what I was thinking. So I just said it. So it turned out great for television.
Sure.
But then I also was able to get a grip and calm back down because, like I said, when you're starving, your emotions are already all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot, it's cold, and yeah, I just started crying I don't even know. And I knew that part would make it on TV because when I said, I don't even know why I'm crying, like they cut out the part where I said, I hope they don't put this on TV. They cut that part out, but they left, I don't even know why I'm crying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was very interested in, stopping and thinking about my reaction. And I like to really I overanalyze everything, especially my own actions, because I like to try to correct those. So I talk a lot about mindset training, and I guess that's just a piece of that. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't find it any harder than I thought. I knew it was going to be hard. I knew living with grizzly bears was going to be hard. So, I mean, the finding food was difficult. That was the hard part.
Yep. I don't know, Charlie, could you do it?
At this point, probably not. So
I'd do it, but I don't want to be on where you were. I don't want all the restrictions.
I know that was the hard part, and then being as strong and independent as I like to think that I am, actually that I know that I am, and then having all those restrictions. When I came out, like I said, I kept saying, I hate my number. They would come to talk to me in recovery, and I just kept saying, I hate my number. It's such a small amount of time. I just hate it. I'm embarrassed. I'm disappointed in myself. So that was very, very hard for me, even still, mentally, to think I have to go back to doing what I did. And I couldn't even accomplish the ending of this. It's a mental concern.
So that's bothering you more than the mental side of just getting through being alone for that many days.
Yeah. The disappointment in myself. Yeah. Yeah. And I know, because I am a rational person, I know that this thing that I now have to deal with my circulation issue, because I lose circulation in my hands now too. So that's a big problem for me, because I still have so many hunts to do, and I travel all over in all kinds of conditions. I actually am a winter person. I love the cold. So I'm outside all the time. In the wintertime, you'll find me in the woods more than you find me in the house, by choice, because I want to be out there in the snow. I love it. So this is going to be a problem for me. So managing this, which they say that I can, it's called Raynaud's syndrome. So they say that I can. So just figuring it all out right now is the thing for me.
Well, so will that get better over time?
No, that's actually a syndrome. They think that it's caused by something else. So we haven't really gotten to the bottom of that yet, because I was just going by what they told me. It was probably just from starvation and your body shutting off circulation to your lower extremities. And so I thought, okay, that's what it was. Well, then I got back and I was out kayaking, and it was like 65 degrees. And there's a perfectly white line that I'll get like right across my fingers where I lose circulation in my fingers. So then it was, okay, so there's something more to this. And when I went to Greenland, it was very, very cold, and I had a small problem with my toes there. But I think I am really good at ignoring some of those symptoms, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I think the starvation probably just pushed whatever to the surface. So yeah, that's just something that I need to figure out how to manage, because it's not major enough to stop me from doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they pulled you from the show. You didn't actually tap out. You stayed as long as you could before they thought, okay, this is too dangerous. What's recovery like? Like what do they make you do, or they want to check on before you go back to the real world? Like, how long is that process?
It's different for everyone. It's also because it was very snowy and hard to get vehicles in and out of the location when there was a lot of snow. So then they got to try to get you out and get you to the airport. And so for me, I was there about 11 days, but, getting my blood pressure back up, getting me rehydrated, getting my circulation in my feet good again, making sure that my toes were getting back feeling, which took quite some time after I came home to get the feeling back in my toes. And then I had lost a lot of the skin on the top of my foot, what all died off, and my foot was just a terrible mess. But so they're watching that. Refeeding, you have to go through a refeeding program, because once you're into starvation mode, if you just come back and you eat, it can be very, very harmful to you. So it's called refeeding syndrome. So you go through a slow process of gaining some weight back and, getting back on your feet that way. So once your vitals are all good and the doctor clears you, so you have to be cleared, mentally, physically, and then everybody kind of signs off on you and you can go home. So, otherwise, it's pretty boring. I found things to do. I went outside and, wandered around and did some exploring. Once I could walk faster again, it was like, first I was walking very, very slow. Your legs are tired, when you change elevation like that and your legs are very, very tired.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of feels like that. But I couldn't stand up without pushing off from something for quite a while. But I found stuff to do outside. And journaling. They bring you a journal and they bring you pens. You don't get a phone. You don't get your computer. You don't get anything back because it's overwhelming. It's like this influx of like stimuli that they don't want for you. It can be overwhelming. So you just get a journal and pens, and I wrote and wrote and wrote. And now when I go back and I read it, I think, oh my gosh, that's really sad. Like one of my entries was like, I woke up in the middle of the night and I don't want to be here. I just want to be back in my shelter. Like, it's really sad.
All the footage that you had taken, you handed over to them. Do you get copies of it? Do you get any of that?
You have no rights to anything.
Oh my gosh.
And
you're killing me.
And you don't have a journal when you're
there
on as a contestant.
They don't let you. No, they want you to suffer that mental side of it. They want you to put the camera not right.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
that makes sense.
And of the 40 some items, there's no like books or anything like that. Okay.
And the footage, I would love to have some of that footage, because like I had a weasel that kept running up to me when I was fishing. He was so funny. He wanted to get past me. So he would like run up and look at me, and then he would run back, and then he would run up and look at me, and he would run back. So there's some pretty cool footage on there of just different things. Like even my grizzly bear, like that morning when I scared him out of camp, like that whole story would have been very cool. So
did you said that they gave you some grizzly bear training in advance?
Yeah. You learn how to work the grizzly bear spray, the bear banger, and the air horn.
Okay, so they did give you those items in addition to your 10.
Yes.
Okay.
I was watching some of that footage, and they're blowing the horn. I don't think half those bears give a crap. They're going to do what they're going to do.
They can be sensitized to the air horn. Well, it's even to the bear banger. Like my bear, he started to run away, and then he started to come back. I keep calling him my bear. I call him my bear all the time.
He was your pet grizzly while you were there.
But they had said that to us, that they will get used to that noise. And you could tell that he was like, oh, that was scary. But then he was like, oh, it didn't hurt me. So that the grizzly bears are very calculated and very, very smart. So
yeah.
Pretty wild.
That is that. Yeah.
Well, what else can we ask you?
So when you were at the kids camp at the National Trappers, did most of the kids recognize you or know who you were, or how did that go?
It's really surprising how many kids are watching me. And I just did another one here at home last weekend. We did a trappers gathering, we called it. And I had 38 kids that I got to talk to about the show. Mm-hmm. So I sat down on the ground with them, and I have all these kids in front of me, and they had free run to ask me questions. Mm-hmm. The kids really were watching me. They weren't even just like, just throwing out random questions. These were kids that are watching the show.
Very specific. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of kids know who I am. It's very surprising.
I didn't recognize you because your hair was, you had long hair on the show. I was like, is that her? Then of course everyone looks different, you know,
I
when you
know.
put makeup on and stuff.
I know I wear makeup sometimes, but people do that to me. I was at the Pennsylvania trapping convention and I was standing next to a husband and wife, and I was actually standing with a couple of my friends. We were just all talking about the convention and how many kids are there. And the husband is looking around and he's like, "Isn't that girl supposed to be here somewhere?" Like, and I was like, he looks at me and I go, "What girl?" And he goes, "The one from that survival show." I go, "Do you mean me?" And he was like, "No."
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've went as far as like a few years ago. I've actually went on the website and looked up like what I would have to do to apply.
Just do it.
Wow. Like you just 20,000 people. Good luck. You never know though.
It's based, you never know. It's based on skill. They do like trappers. So
yeah, there's been trappers on there in the past for sure. So.
Yeah. There was one guy that was actually out of Pennsylvania too, I believe.
So
trapper.
Roland was from Pennsylvania originally. He won the $1 Million Challenge. He built Rock House.
Yep.
Yeah, 100 Day. He calls himself the 100-Day King. He's a neat fella.
He's a trooper. Like he was intense.
Yeah, they caught the game on that season. Tons of rabbits and I mean just tons of fish.
Yeah.
Food. I mean, it was hard, of course, but yeah, tons of game.
I wonder if the producers of the show will adjust after seeing how difficult this season was with getting food.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that hurts their footage.
I would think, but I think that they get, they have that twist in mind, and that's really where they want to go, and then they work around that, with whatever the restrictions are. So, and I think they were probably limited with COVID.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
So, do you stay in touch with the other people that were on the show?
I do. Yes. I like to call them my good friends. They're the only people in the world that know what I went through without me having to explain what I went through. So.
Yeah. It's a pretty exclusive club.
Yes. Yeah.
How about from past seasons?
So I've connected with quite a few of those. I'll be going out to Idaho when I go in September. So there'll be a bunch of us that will run into each other out at Rabbit Stick out there. So yeah, I'll get to meet up with a few of them, but I've talked to quite a few of them. They're all great.
Have you, what's the one guy's name that shot the moose?
Jordan.
Have you met him?
I haven't got to meet him in person, but we've chatted, via Messenger and social media. Mm-hmm. He's in his videos. He does like a breakdown of each episode. Mm-hmm. He's always very understanding and thoughtful when he talks about what we each did out there. So because he understands it from a different point of view, so he can break it down for people a little bit better. So
right. We recently listened to a podcast that he did with Joe Rogan, and he seemed like a genuinely thoughtful, nice person.
It was funny because to me, always we watch them on television too, so then when he's critiquing me or breaking down what I did, I'm thinking, Jordan Jonas is saying my name. Because it's so funny to me that people think it's cool I was on TV, all day today at my shop were nonstop people coming to see me and talk to me about the show and taking pictures. And it's really cool, but every day it's still just amazing to me that somebody wants to take their picture with me. That's crazy. And every day they make me blush by saying something just very nice and supportive.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
That's right.
We appreciate you representing trappers on the show, and from a female perspective, that we need more of that, I think. And it's going in the right direction. There's a lot of young ladies that are getting into this stuff.
Yep. Absolutely. There's some really amazing women in the trapping industry. And I think we play a special role in teaching the next generation. I mean, I think we have a really great place. Um, but I think that it's such an important form of conservation that kind of got overlooked. So I think that there's so many people recognizing that now, which is why we see everybody stepping up for the next generation. So
Right. I mean, it's got such a grassroots importance to it that some people certainly don't realize. But it's I think with women being involved in the outdoors and hunting and trapping, certainly as the generations go by, will become, and it's the fastest growing area anyways, but I think it will just continue to increase over the years. And when I was a kid, that wasn't really the thing for females to do, and now it's much more accepted. And you don't hear young fathers now saying, "Oh, I wish I had a son so I could take him hunting," if he has a daughter, because it's just fine to take the daughter, so which is great. I mean, that's a really good thing. So
I did
and that's what you did.
Yeah, that's what I did. So yeah.
I did a lot of research because I didn't really have a dad that taught me that stuff growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everybody always asking that, did your dad teach you? And so I've done a lot of research as to why I am who I am, why I do what I do, and why I love it so much. And I just do it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of my research, I found a lot of cultures that have, burials of women that were the hunters. A lot of women hunters in cultures, they will have their hunting tools buried with them and large game bones buried with them. So in a lot of cultures, women were the hunters. And so my theory is just that now we're at a time, our society encourages us to do what makes us happy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something that has been so prevalent previously in society. We had those roles predefined for us.
Sure.
And we just kind of fell into place and met those roles. And so now we're just being told, just do what makes you happy. And so you see women like me that are doing what make them happy, and nothing stops us. And we're, on top of mountains in Alberta and all over the place. I see amazing women hikers that, maybe they're just adventurers.
Mm-hmm.
Not hunters, but you see a lot of women doing some really, really cool stuff that makes them happy. So I don't know. It's probably not even close to being right, but I try to find some reasoning behind who I am and why I do it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the whole key right there on everything,
Mm-hmm.
Just do what makes you happy at this point.
I look at all the people that, I mean, this is more just in life in general, but all the people that are counting the days to their retirement or when their time off is going to be. And it's so important to do the things that you appreciate and enjoy doing, not in your life, and also ideally in your career, too. So it's really important, I think. But and some people obviously are more fortunate than others in that, going down those roads. But
yeah, it's a big choice too. I mean, we all can say that, well, we have to do it this way. We have to, but I don't know. I quit doing what I was doing. I had a really great career. And then when my world kind of abandoned me, I had to make that choice. Am I going to just keep doing what I've been doing and then it all disappeared? Am I going to just keep rebuilding that? Or am I just going to do what makes me happy? And if that means struggling, and I have for a very long time,
mm-hmm.
then it's fine, because I'm happy.
Yeah.
So I made that choice. And, maybe not everybody feels that they can, but I certainly have sacrificed so much to just be who I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's worth it.
Yeah. Ultimately, you will be more happy.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So what's next for you? Are you obviously own a sporting goods place and you teach there, and Are you going to continue that or move in a different area? You're going to have a survival YouTube show? Like what's next for Rose?
Well, I was saying that I'm not a survival expert. I don't really know what I think. Maybe, I'm bordering on expert. I lived it. I did it. I don't know, but I don't really ever like to think I'm an expert at anything. I think there's always so much more to learn. So I probably won't have a survival YouTube channel, but I will. I have decided that I just put out my first little YouTube video on whitetail hunting. I want to challenge myself a little bit more and kind of showcase an older form of hunting, get back to really going out there and hunting and showing people how I do it. So I think that's kind of what I'm going to do. The store is kind of a platform for me to be able to teach. So it's not my first love, the store. Teaching is, but retail is not. I know what I'll do with the store. I'd like to keep it because, like you said, from a grassroots perspective, it's a great place. I reach so many children. I reach thousands of children because I'm in a very small town, but I reach my local children, and then I get to showcase that on social media, which reaches so many children. And now I get to travel. So I think I just want to do some public speaking. I love going to all the conventions and being able to be a part of it that way. Mm-hmm. So I definitely want to do some of that. So it'll be some more YouTube stuff, really being better about video editing and putting those videos together. And then I have my brown bear hunt coming up next spring. So I'm going to go back out and face those big old bear.
So is that a bow or a gun?
A bow.
Bow? Awesome.
Yeah.
Will that be in Alaska or Canada or?
That is Alaska.
Okay. Coastal bear?
We haven't totally decided. He has a couple of different areas that he hunts. The gentleman that I'll be hunting with, I met him and his family, a few years back. So I've been talking about this bear hunt for quite some time. So we haven't totally decided on where we're doing the hunt, but yeah, we'll narrow that down over the next few months. And I'll be doing my YouTube series based on, what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Super Slam too.
Okay.
We'll be tuning in.
So
yeah, YouTube videos. Those things are a little bit harder to do than I'm much more the hunter than the cameraman. So.
Well, you got kind of baptism by fire on the cameraman thing with one on alone. My gosh.
That's what working 5 cameras.
I came back and I looked at my YouTube channel and I was like, wow, I've learned so much.
People are thinking that there's somebody out there with you filming that or whatever, but
yeah, people say that all the time. And I tell them, that moment of me crying there when that bear was, when I wasn't sure what he was going to do, that was that moment of realization that nobody was coming to help me. Yeah. I was completely alone and there's nobody coming to help you. And when that hits you, it hits you hard. And so that if there is any proof that there is nobody with you, it is that second that I realized that.
Mm-hmm. So was that, talking about the cameras and having to do self-filming, was that just kind of a pain that you would have just as soon not had to deal with?
I don't know. That's a tough one. That's your job going out there is to get that footage for them. It made everything harder. Of course, it made everything 5 times longer. Right. If we have a couple of minutes, I'll just break it down really quick for you. And this is always really makes people realize how hard it was. So if I want to cut a tree, I have to set up my big camera, probably a small camera, maybe put one in a tree somewhere. And then the small one I can probably walk over. So I'll put one on myself, right? So maybe 4 cameras. Then once I get them all set up, I'll cut the tree. So you fall the tree, hopefully not on one of the cameras. And then you have to move all the cameras ahead down the path somewhere. So you reset up all the cameras. You go back and you get the tree. You drag the tree through the cameras. You drop the tree. You go back to get the cameras. Take the cameras to your shelter. You set the cameras all up again. You go back. You get the tree, and you drag the tree to your shelter. And that is how you get one tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is kind of a pain, actually.
Yes. Yes, it is a lot of work for one tree.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, I'm sure you're busy, but we have a rendezvous at our shop in Indiana in September. You're more than welcome to come and talk there if you're not too busy.
That would be awesome. I think my September, I overextended myself. So many fun things to do and so many fun places to go. I was like, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. So maybe we'll have to plan for that next year.
Yeah. So yeah, September is an absolutely crazy month because everybody's getting ready for the fall. There's events, trapping, get-togethers like every weekend. I mean, it's and then of course the hunting world is. I mean, the whole thing is just over the top. So yeah, it is tough to fit anything extra in on September and the first part of October. So very difficult. So Rose, how can people follow you?
All your contacts.
What's your contact, social media contacts that you would, so you can have people follow along?
Okay. So almost everything can be found with my hashtag, This Is My Quest. My quest being teaching wildlife conservation from a cultural aspect. So almost everything that's out there for me is hashtag This Is My Quest. And that's been for about almost 5 years now. So you can usually find me under that hashtag. And then also my brand is kind of a personal brand. So Rosanna Moore is really how you would find me with anything. The name of my store is Moore Sports Center. So I also do some things over there with the kids. So you can kind of keep an eye on what trainings and stuff and what seminars I'm doing over there. But most of the stuff is my YouTube channel is Rosanna Moore. This is my quest. So Facebook, Instagram. Yeah.
Okay.
I think that covers it. I'm not big on Twitter. I did just
You're not a tweeter?
I'm not even sure what the correct lingo is there. I have been tweeting some, articles or whatever. They tell me that's more what Twitter is for. I sound like I'm really old when I say they tell me.
You want to sound even older? Do you have a TikTok or not?
I do have a TikTok. It's real.
See, you're in there.
I do. I actually do more on TikTok now than I do on my regular social media. I'm just having so much fun because I raised little pigs that I'm going to be butchering here soon, and people just love them. They make the perfect TikTok videos. Yes, I have. Rosanna is my TikTok. So I don't know is that called a handle or
I don't know. I don't have TikTok. I'm not sure.
One more. What was that again? One more time.
Real Rosanna.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was very old at the convention because we were handing out DVDs and the kids were like, I was like, do you want a DVD? And they were like, no.
What is that? Frisbee?
Isn't that something? I mean, it's like, that's just a thing of the past. And, just.
I'm going to start passing out like VHS tapes and stuff. Like, what is this thing?
Yeah, that's some sort of archaeological find. So, yeah, that's crazy.
Well, we appreciate your time, and we'll be following along with your journey. So, looking forward to seeing the spring bear hunt for sure.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
And maybe we can do this. We'll do like a follow-up one in a year or so.
Okay, sounds good. See where I am, but keep in touch.
Yeah.
All right.
We will. Thank you.
We'll see you.